Synchronize the audio! So recently I started studying machine learning in university, and if you don't know what machine learning is, essentially it's machines learning. It's quite literally machine learning. And we're still just learning all of the boring theory stuff about it, when all I want to get into is the fun neural network stuff. And if you don't know what a neural network is, basically it's a network of neurons. Essentially it's a brain. So when we're talking about neural networks in machine learning, we're talking about simulating a brain. But obviously on a much simpler level. To put it in perspective, the average human brain consists of like 86 billion neurons, and the brain I'll be making today consists of like 86 neurons. Kind of like my brain. Pretty empty. So first off, I have to learn more about neural networks and how they work. I spent the first couple of days reading about neural networks and trying to understand the fundamentals of them. Now there are many types of neural networks, but generally speaking, it kind of works like this. So we have some input, some neurons, and some outputs. And when we give some inputs to the neural network, it will process that information and turn it into some outputs. Now there's a lot more going on under the hood, but that is like the very basics of it. For now, you can just imagine a box. You give the box some information, and the box gives you back some new information. Okay, so now we know how a neural network works, but before I try to teach it how to play my game, we're gonna do a simple experiment first, just to verify that my algorithm is working. So I set up a new Unity project and created a little guy. He doesn't know how to do anything yet, so he's pretty dumb. Yeah, f you, Billy, you little prick, nobody likes you. Got him good. Now let's program his brain and see what Billy can actually do with some work. We're also gonna create a horde of them, since they will learn faster that way, and here we go! Nothing happened. Second take and action. This time it seems to be working, but as you can tell they're all pretty dumb and don't really know what they're doing. But as time goes on they're gonna get better and better, so what's actually going on here? How are they improving? Well, we're currently giving Billy some input, specifically the rotation of his body and the rotation of his legs. And based on this information he has to figure out how to process it and give some decent output that will make him achieve his goal. In this case, the goal being to move forward. And every 15 seconds we destroy half of the population and replace them with duplicates of the best half of the population. Then we mutate this portion of the population, which will give some variety and new changes so they can learn to adapt and overcome the challenge. And as you can see, by generation 15 most of them have adapted a decent style and some of them a interesting style. I don't quite like how they're just sliding on the ground, so I told them in order to get points you have to stay elevated. Now, they kind of outsmarted me and just lifted their left leg to stay a bit more elevated and still are kind of sliding. So you win this round, robots, but I'll be back. Anyway, enough of this simulation, time to get to the real meat of the coconut and teach them how to play my game. So first off, I made a very simple copy of my game. If you don't know how the game works, it's very simple. You launch yourself into balls to gain points, and when you hit another ball, you regain your jump. I have a video about how I made the game, and it's also available on the Google Play Store, link in the description, just saying go play, download, okay, thank you. Here you can see the simplified version, which is what we'll be using for the training. Once they're done training, I'm gonna put the best ones into the actual game and see how it does. But as you can tell, they're nowhere close to being finished training. I mean, Billy right here is still really stupid. But before we start the training, let's add some utility so it's easier to see what's going on during training. First I made some stats in the corner, very cool. Then I made a little graph showing how well they're performing over generations. And finally, I added a button that allows you to track the best player. Oh yeah. And just like that, it's time to start training. So there are 50 players on the map and around 2,000 balls to hit. The red line shows the actual direction in which they should go, and the blue line shows the direction in which the AI predicted. As you can tell, their predictions are awful right now and they're just kinda aiming randomly, so let's speed up a few generations and see what happens. As you can tell by the graph, the fitness is slowly increasing over time, which means they're getting better. In this case, they're given fitness based on how many balls they manage to hit. Fast forward 100 generations and they're still really bad at aiming. They aim like my grandma, really bad. Actually, I don't really know. I'm sorry, Grandma, maybe you aim really well. I haven't actually seen my grandma aim, so I couldn't really tell ya, but Anyway, it seems they have only learned that jumping up at really high speeds usually leads to them hitting a lot of balls. This is actually really bad since we want them to aim, not just shoot randomly. Remember when I said they get fitness based on how many balls they hit? Well, let's change that so they get fitness based on how well they aim instead of hitting balls. This should in theory work better since they won't get any points for aiming poorly, even if they hit a target. And so the second training session begins. After 20 generations they aim a bit better, and after 100 generations they seem to have gotten the hang of it. But there's a big issue: they aim really well at targets above them, but terribly at targets below them. This is likely due to overfitting. Since they've all started on the ground, they're all used to aiming upwards to get their initial points, which means they're kind of biased towards aiming up and not down. So we need to do some changes again to adjust this. And here goes the third attempt. I've made some major changes, one of which is changing the gravity to 0, and the other big one is making them spawn randomly all across the map to combat the upwards bias. Here we are about 80 generations in, and would you look at that, it seems like our plan worked. They can now aim even if the target is below them, and they're actually really good at that. So now that we know that the training works as intended, let's force them to train for many generations to come, sit back, relax, and grab a snack. So we're now a little more than 200 generations in, and their aiming is getting really good. They can now aim in pretty much any direction, and they actually have a really sharp aim. After a bit more optimizing and training, let's hit the save button, which will save Billy's brain. This is going to generate a text file containing the weights and biases of the neural network. Essentially, this is the hidden layers. And this is why it's called the hidden layers, because it's just a bunch of gibberish to any human. Unless you're a big brain like me, I can totally understand it. So yeah. Now that we have the text file, we can move it to the actual game and try to implement it there. Not sure how I'm gonna do that, but let's give it a go. I feel like I'm performing a brain surgery on Billy without actually knowing how to perform a brain surgery on Billy. Yeah, just hang in there, buddy, we're gonna get through this together. Hopefully you won't get lobotomized. Lobotomized? And we ended up with a lobotomized bull. I'm sorry, Billy. If you look closely though, you can tell he knows where to aim, but still goes off in a weird angle. It turns out I just misconfigured his brain a bit, so we'll be right back. Safe to say, Billy is a lot better on my own game than I could ever be. I'm proud of you, Billy. This actually went way better than I expected, and the AI turned out fairly good for my very first one. It's still a bit clunky though, as I did not teach it to account for gravity or green spikes, so it just kind of bounces into them and dies. But other than that, it works very well, and I might try to teach him more, but that's for another video. So let me know if you want to see more like this, because I had a lot of fun playing around with it, and I would totally do more. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Thanks for watching. Make sure to smash subscribe for more epically wacky content. And as always, massive thanks to my Patreon supporters for their amazing support. You're all amazing. I love you very much. Big smoochies to all of you. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I appreciate you. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that's gonna be for me though. Make sure to drink your milk, hit your sacks, and slick your slacks. I don't know. Oh, also before you go, I'll be going to Unite Copenhagen. I don't know how to pronounce that, but something like that. I don't know. So if any of you are going there, make sure to come say hi, and you can also use this. You can use this code to get a 20% off. And I'm not supposed to give my personal opinion, but that's a very good price and all of that. Yep. See ya.